So today I'm going to show you how to paint a variety of skies. We're going to keep it simple today. We're concentrating on the skies, and then I'm going to show you how to paint some different little landscapes that are very simple on top of the skies that we create. And I want you to really pay attention to how the colors in the sky really sets the mood for the painting. So grab your materials. I'm going to go over them in the next chapter here, and then we can get started. So the materials we're going to be using is, of course, watercolor paper, our palette and paints, 2 jars of water. We're going to use some tissue, Kleenex. We're going to use our spray bottles, preferably if you have one that does misting, and then those are the ones that you can get anywhere. And then if you have a spray bottle that'll do kind of like a dot pattern, it's always helpful. We might use some salt. We might use some masking fluid. We might use some white paint of some sort. I have this one here, that's Aqua Cover by Creative Marks. That's called liquid watercolor paper, and it's designed to cover Arches bright white paper, which is what I paint on. But don't worry about it. Any kind of a white watercolor paint you have, or gouache, or water soluble ink, or if you don't have any, that's also fine, because you can get the same result or similar result with using the masking fluid. And then we are going to use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. If you have that lying around in your watercolor tool, or maybe out in your cleaning supplies, we might use that for lifting out some clouds or softening some edges. And you can also use, instead, you can also use some cotton pads. Like a lot of you ladies, you probably have that maybe in your bathroom for, you use them for taking off makeup and stuff like that. You could actually also use just a little sponge. So there's many ways of using different tools. And a toothbrush for splattering might come in handy. Old toothbrush, not the one you brush your teeth with. Just being funny here. We might use some credit cards or plastic cards or room keys or whatever you have, or a palette knife. These two things, they do basically the same. It's if we're going to scrape out something maybe in the foreground. So it's not so much for the sky, it's just if we want to put a little foreground on, then these here would come in handy. We could also think of using a white gel pen. And we have our brushes here. I'm going to use a couple of these big ones just to get the water on, whatever you have. And here's my big number 30 round. I have a number 12 and a number 8 round. And then I have my usual dagger brush. And then I have a rigger brush. I don't know, that's again would probably be more for the foreground. And then I have this stiff hog hair brush. It's actually one of Sterling Edwards' brushes. If you've seen any of my other watercolor videos, you might have seen me use this brush or go over this brush. It has stiff hog hair, so they're very stiff, so that is also great for splattering. And it can also be used to lift out and softening edges with. So I grabbed that one since I have it. And then we might need an X-Acto knife. But a lot of this is, it's not necessary. I just want to show you how I can use all these different tools to create different effects in the sky. So now let's move on to a sunset. Who doesn't love to paint a beautiful sunset? So we're going to start with some cobalt blue. Get some of that in here. And then I'm going to get some Antwerp blue in here with the cobalt. So a little bit of the Antwerp. I can let them say hello here. So that creates a little bit of a deeper blue for that evening sky. And then we're going to need a pink. And this time let's go with our permanent rose, or if you have quinacridone rose, that'll work great too. I could also have used my opera rose, but since I used that in one of the previous skies, I thought let's go in and use some of our permanent rose. And so I want a nice big puddle of that here, and rinse that out. And we can always check, our water and look at that beautiful lavender color we get there. So that's great for a sunset sky. And permanent rose is one of those staining colors, so make sure you get it out of your brush well. Okay, so we're going to get one more red, and we're going to go with our quinacridone red, which is more of a true red. So we're going to get a little bit of that one in. We need quite a bit of red. The reds are going to be our border between the yellow and the blue, so we don't get green in our sky. Of course, that's really the only color I'm not really that crazy about in my sky. And you can see still our water's looking lovely. And then we need some transparent yellow. I like to go with the transparent yellow for this because it's a nice, very bright yellow. And there we have it. And then of course, once we get that mixed up with everything, you can see we get kind of like a brownish color. That's why we don't really want all the colors to mix together. All right, so let's wet our sky once more, just like we did the other times. Get water on our paper. Make sure it gets nice and soaked, so we don't get any streaks in our sky. And again, I'm going to go down. This one I actually might go all the way down. Make sure I don't have any dry spots. I'll go the other way. And again, I'm going to get that usual little bit of bubbling that we're going to take care of in a minute. It's very important that you take your time with this, getting the water on, and give it a little time to sink into the paper, and then you might even have to reapply. It all depends on, the climate you live in. So there's that, and then let's do the same thing. Spray on the back. There. And then this time, I'm going to probably use my number 12 brush. So I'm going to go in and get a little bit of that yellow on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to go in and put that like here, and maybe down a little bit. And I have a little bit of white inside. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to get some of my quinacridone red, and I'm going to put that around the yellow. It's my border, you see. It's my border between the yellow and once we get to the blues. And I want to make sure that things don't mix. I don't want all the colors to mix together. And then we're going to go in with some of our purple. No, not purple, pink, sorry. It's going to turn purple, but not just yet. Pink, and get some of the pink in. And get some of that out to the sides here. And then we're going to get our blue around here and down here and on this side. You can see it's already getting a little dry here on the corners, and we can get a little bit more pink in here. All right, so rinse out our brush, and then we're going to hold up our paper and let gravity start moving these paints around. And we are going to take our mister bottle, and while we move our hands, we are going to spray in a little bit and move the pigment. And I'm spraying from the middle here because I don't want to lose my light in there. And so I'm moving it back and forth, and keeping a close eye on my color so that I don't have my blue and my yellow running together. That's my main concern. Don't want them running together. Need a little bit more spray here. And while it's all this wet, I can put in a little bit more of that yellow, and I can put a little bit down here just to get that glow. And I can also take a little bit of my red and my pink and run a little bit of that out here. I'm going to run my colors out. Yeah, I think that's going fine. Oops. And then I'm just going to pick up here, run those, if you get those muted colors, run them down to a corner and gently pick it up with a tissue. Alright, got a little fingerprint there, but that's okay. See that out there on the edge? But that's going to be hidden by the mat anyway if this turns into a painting, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to run this one back down here. So this is a little bit more kind of hit and miss, and it takes a little experience to get a good result on this, but don't worry about it. If we have some less attractive places in our sky here, we can always cover them up with whatever we have in the foreground, so that we can just, or we can crop it. I mean, there's many things you can do, but I'm okay with this. I also like to say, you got to be just happy with what you get and make the best of it, right? In watercolor as in life. And I'm not going to try and mess with that there. If you start trying to fix things when you have a wet painting like this, I can almost guarantee you that from a little boo-boo, it turns out to be a big disaster if you try and go in now. Now we just have to let it dry, and then we'll see what happens when it's dry, and we'll see what we can do with it. And that's half the fun. So here's our dried sunset scene. And now I'm going to take a ruler and try and find out where I want to have a horizon line. And I like that I got that yellow reflected down here, so I'm thinking I want something with a body of water. And so I think if I do this as my horizon line, and it has to be straight, you know, that's why I'm using a ruler, just to keep myself on the straight and narrow. Okay, there we have it. And then just gonna go, and then I want to dip down and then really go up here like that. Okay, you can barely see the lines, but you'll see them very soon when I put water on and paint on. I got my puddles ready, the same colors that I used in the painting. I have some opera pink. I think that's what I use. I might have used permanent rose, but I'm going to use opera pink. And I'm going to use my cobalt blue, and then I have a tiny bit of the transparent yellow over here. And I'm going to mix myself a watery lavender color, and I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow, and that's going to bring it down to, see how that graded down? Did you notice that? Because then I'm basically mixing all three primary colors, and that's exactly the kind of color I'm after. So there we have it, and then I can vary it a little bit, make it a little bit warmer, make it a little bit cooler. And then I am going to use probably my number 12 brush here is good. Clean water, and I'm going to put clean water in the whole shape, land shape that I have here. And I'm going to be very careful that I get it straight at the horizon line. That is really important. And then I can go and just stay just barely underneath my pencil line for the ridge here that I drew in with a very, very light pencil line. I don't want to go all the way up to the line because the water does have a tendency to seep a little bit, and I want to kind of get a nice hard edge here. And just make sure we got enough water on. And so now I have water on my land shape here. I hope you can see it. And I'm gonna start going in with this brush that I just loaded up, and I'm just going to put some of that color on here, and I'm going to dip into the various puddles areas of my puddle there so that I get a variety of color, so it's not all the same but still in the same family. Put a little bit more pink on here. And I'm putting it on in a very transparent manner because the whole idea is I want the color that I originally put on this sunset to shine through when it dries. And so I'm going to rinse out a little bit there. And now here I'll just take a little bit of the pink and the yellow. Ooh, that's way too strong, but not to worry, tone it down. Just want it a little stronger in here. And then I'm going to gray it down at the bottom. And sorry, I have to flip my paper around so that I can get to all the areas without putting my hand in wet paint. Here. And I want to get it painted before it dries on me because I do not want any hard lines in here if I can avoid it. And so here, put a little bit more of the pink in because I have such a strong blue underneath. And then let's put a little bit more of that yellow in here. And let's get a little bit of that shadow color. And take a little bit of that darker color in here, a couple of places. Just kind of drag it down like that, a couple of places to just kind of say there's a little bit of undulation in the mountains. There. Look at that. And see how that now goes together? I love it. And what I can see, I had a little spot up here, there, that was already on my paper. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a little detail brush here. I could also take my rigger brush, but I think a detail brush is a little bit safer. And I'm going to dip into this mixture I have here of the dark color, and then I have some real dark over here. The puddle I had left over, I'm going to put a little bit of pink in. So that's kind of, now I have a little dark gray here. And I want to make sure I don't have too much pigment on my brush and that I have a nice fine tip. And then, without putting my hand in, hopefully, I'm going to create a bird. That was one bird. One bird is never enough. You want to have more than one bird. And so I'm going to have some more birds coming. There. kind of feel I need to kind of push in a little bit. So let's see what we can do here. Might take a little bit of that darker color here. Temper it with this. Gonna come in here. Like that. A little bit of that pink in. And darken down here. And then, before anything dries on me, right away, I'm going to go in with my credit card and scrape in some rocks. And then I'm going to go in a little bit more of this darker color and just put a little bit of shadow behind some of the shapes I have here, just to give them a little bit more character. Don't want them to be too dramatic because they're out here in the corner, but you know. And then maybe I will take this brush here and just try stippling it in, and let's see. And just, you know, put some little indications of maybe some grasses or something, just to break it up a little bit. And down in the corner here. There. Can you see that? Just a little bit like that. Doesn't have to be much. And then over here, just going to do a little repeat of that. It's just going to be not the same shape, because you don't want to repeat exact shapes. Just like that. Be a little darker there. And let's do a couple of, and we can do some of those here. Yeah. Like that. Just so that there's a little darkness in the corners there. And I still left a little opening so you can kind of get into the picture. And then here I'm just going to scrape out a few little shapes like that. Yeah. And then I'm going to just let it be a quiet sunset. Doesn't always have to have a whole lot of elements. Of course I could put trees in and all sorts of stuff, but I have such a lovely sky. I like what I got in that distant mountain range. It's kind of a little misty, but you can see the colors are shining through, and then we have those little bits of some rocks and stuff in the foreground, and we're going to call it a day. So that concludes our lesson today on painting skies in watercolor. I hope you had fun, and in the meantime, wishing you happy painting, stay creative, stay positive, and I'll see you soon.